The announcement came like a thunderclap on a seemingly normal day in September 2025. The Nepalese government declared a ban on 26 social media platforms, stating that these platforms failed to register locally. This sudden decree hit the youth of Nepal hardest, a generation for whom social media was not just a pastime, but a vital artery of communication and expression. Within hours, the digital silence planned by the government morphed into a cacophony of anger and disbelief among Gen Z, who took to the streets in droves, their cries echoing through both real and virtual landscapes. For the youth, this was more than just a loss of web spaces. It felt like an existential attack on their lifestyle and freedoms. Social media platforms were their canvas, their marketplace, and their rallying point for social causes. The ban, perceived as an authoritarian clampdown, was the trigger that lit a long-standing fuse of frustration. Anger, which had been simmering beneath the surface, erupted in fiery protests across Nepal, with young voices demanding immediate reversal and accountability. The urgency and passion with which the protests spread were unprecedented. Within hours, Kathmandu's streets were flooded with teenagers and young adults, all united by a single cause. Their placards bore slogans not just against the social media ban, but against the broader issues of corruption, nepotism, and economic stagnation, a testament to their deeper grievances. This was a generation ready to fight for their right to be heard, and honestly, they weren't backing down. Across the nation, the ban was seen not just as an isolated incident, but as the tipping point of accumulated discontent. For years, Gen Z had felt sidelined by a government that seemed to cater more to its political elites than its future leaders. The abruptness of the ban was a call to action, signaling that the time for passive acceptance was over. Nepal's political landscape has been a rocky terrain, marred by instability and rapid changes in leadership. Since becoming a republic in 2008, the country has witnessed 14 different governments. This constant political upheaval has created a climate of uncertainty, especially for the youth who have grown up amid these turbulent times. With promises of reform frequently made and seldom kept, a pervasive sense of disillusionment has taken root among the young population. High unemployment rates have added fuel to this fire of dissatisfaction. Nearly half of Nepal's population is under the age of 28, yet opportunities remain scarce. For many young Nepalese, the harsh reality involves a struggle to find jobs, with the country's GDP per capita lingering under $1,500. This economic hardship is exacerbated by the widespread reliance on remittances, which constitute a third of the national economy. The youth's dreams of a better future are often met with systemic barriers and limited avenues for progress. The frustration was palpable. As the government continuously failed to address these fundamental issues, the youth were left grappling with a system that seemed inherently skewed against them. The social media ban then was not just about losing access to digital platforms. It symbolized a broader narrative of exclusion and disenfranchisement that Gen Z was determined to rewrite. The protests were as much about unemployment, corruption, and nepotism as they were about the ban itself. The young generation demanded transparency and accountability from their leaders, tired of seeing political dynasties benefit while ordinary citizens struggled. This was a clarion call from a demographic that was no longer willing to accept the status quo. For Nepal's Gen Z, social media is more than a tool. It's a lifeline. In a country where traditional media is often seen as controlled by political interests, social media platforms have become the primary outlets for free expression and alternative narratives. They serve as a space where young people can share ideas, mobilize for causes, and connect with a global community. Platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok have empowered this generation to voice their opinions and rally support for issues that matter to them. The digital world has also offered economic opportunities that the traditional job market has failed to provide. Many young Nepalese use these platforms to promote small businesses, showcase talents, or even pursue careers as social media influencers. This digital economy represents a new frontier of potential, one that the youth are eager to explore and expand. The ban, therefore, was not just an inconvenience. It threatened their autonomy and economic prospects. Social media's role in shaping the identity of Nepal's young generation cannot be overstated. It has cultivated a sense of solidarity and empowerment, enabling them to challenge societal norms and campaign for progressive changes. The platforms are where they learn about the world, discuss social issues, and engage in political discourse, often sparking conversations that traditional media ignores. In this context, the government's decision to ban social media was perceived as an infringement on basic freedoms. It was an attempt to silence a generation that had grown accustomed to having a voice. The subsequent protests were a testament to the resilience and determination of a demographic unwilling to be sidelined. For Gen Z, social media is not just a platform, it's a symbol of their fight for a more inclusive and, honestly, a more democratic society. The protests began on September 8, 2025, at Maitigar Mandala in Kathmandu, a site historically known for its political rallies. What started as a small gathering quickly swelled into a massive movement, with thousands of young Nepalese pouring onto the streets. The energy was electric, a palpable mix of anger and hope, as chants for freedom and justice echoed through the air. This was a movement that refused to be contained, spreading rapidly from the capital to towns and villages across the country. As word of the protests spread on the very platforms that the government sought to ban, more young people joined the cause. The movement was characterized by its inclusivity, drawing support from diverse sections of society. Students, professionals, and even older citizens who empathized with the youth's plight took to the streets, united in their demand for change. The protests were marked by creativity, with demonstrators utilizing art, music, and theater to voice their dissent. Key locations like the Maitigar Mandala became the heartbeat of the revolution, with rallies held daily. These gatherings were meticulously organized, showcasing a level of unity and coordination that defied government expectations. The youth proved that they were not only passionate, but also strategic, leveraging every tool at their disposal to amplify their message. The rapid spread of the protests was a clear indication of the widespread dissatisfaction among Nepal's youth. It was a collective awakening, a realization that their voices mattered and could effect real change. As the movement gained momentum, it became clear that this was no longer just about the social media ban. It was a fight for the soul of a nation, a demand for a new era of governance and accountability. As the protests grew in intensity, the government's response became, well, increasingly aggressive. On the third day of demonstrations, police forces were deployed in large numbers, using tear gas and water cannons to disperse the crowds. The situation escalated tragically when live rounds were fired, resulting in the deaths of 72 people. The most shocking allegations involved police firing on schoolchildren, an act that ignited further outrage and propelled the protests into an even more furious phase. In response to the violence, the protesters' tactics shifted dramatically. Anger and grief fueled their actions as they stormed and set fire to government buildings, including the parliament and the Prime Minister's office. The iconic Kathmandu Post's offices and the newly opened Hilton Hotel also fell victim to the flames. In a poignant symbol of defiance, the homes of political leaders were targeted, with the wife of a former prime minister critically injured in one such attack. The financial impact of these events was, honestly, staggering. Estimates placed the damage at 3 trillion Nepalese rupees, nearly half of the country's GDP. The economic repercussions were felt nationwide, adding another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Yet for the protesters, these actions were a necessary escalation, a way to send a clear message to a government that seemed deaf to peaceful appeals. The violence marked a turning point in the revolution, shifting the narrative from a peaceful protest to an urgent push for systemic change. The heavy-handed government response only served to strengthen the resolve of the demonstrators. It was a grim reminder of the stakes involved, a vivid illustration of the lengths to which the youth were willing to go to reclaim their future. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Gen Z revolution was its decentralized, leaderless nature. There was no single figurehead or organization steering the movement. Instead, it was driven by the collective efforts of thousands of young people, each contributing in their own way. This organic structure made it difficult for the government to suppress the protests, as there were no leaders to arrest or negotiate with. The movement was largely orchestrated through digital tools, with social media and encrypted messaging apps playing a crucial role. Platforms like WhatsApp, Signal, and Telegram became virtual command centers where strategies were discussed and information was disseminated. Memes and digital content provided a creative outlet and helped maintain morale, while the hashtag #NepoKids became a global rallying cry against political corruption and nepotism. The hashtag highlighted the widespread resentment towards political dynasties and the privileged offspring, or Nepo babies, who flaunted their wealth and influence. It captured the essence of the protests, a fight against an entrenched system that favored a select few at the expense of the majority. This digital uprising was not just a local phenomenon, it resonated globally, with support pouring in from Nepali youth abroad and international allies. In a testament to the power of digital democracy, around 10,000 Nepali youth, including those in the diaspora, voted for an interim prime minister via an online poll on Discord. This innovative approach underscored the movement's commitment to inclusivity and transparency, setting a precedent for how technology can be harnessed for political engagement. The government's attempts to quell the protests ultimately proved futile. The sheer scale and intensity of the movement left Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli with little choice but to resign, succumbing to the relentless pressure from the streets. His resignation, along with that of the Home Minister, marked a significant victory for the protesters, a validation of their efforts and sacrifices. In a historic decision, former Supreme Court Chief Justice Sushila Karki was appointed as the interim Prime Minister, a choice that was widely supported by the demonstrators. Her appointment signaled a new beginning, a departure from the old guard that had long dominated Nepalese politics. The interim government announced plans for new elections in March 2026, offering a glimmer of hope and a chance for genuine reform. The collapse of the government was a testament to the power of collective action. It demonstrated that when united, the youth could challenge even the most entrenched political structures. The revolution had reshaped the political landscape, forcing a reckoning with the issues that had long plagued the nation. As Nepal prepared for a new chapter, the protesters remained vigilant. They knew that the road to lasting change was fraught with challenges, but their victory had instilled a newfound confidence. The Gen Z revolution had shown that the youth were not just the leaders of tomorrow, but the change-makers of today. The Gen Z revolution in Nepal was not an isolated incident. It was part of a broader trend of youth-led movements sweeping across South Asia. Similar protests had successfully toppled governments in Sri Lanka in 2022 and Bangladesh in 2024, all driven by common themes of frustration with entrenched political elites and demands for economic justice and accountability. These movements shared several characteristics. They were largely leaderless, organized through social media and fueled by deep-seated grievances against corruption and nepotism. The youth in these countries were tired of being sidelined and were demanding a seat at the table. They were united by a shared desire for transparency, equality, and a brighter future. The parallels between these movements underscored the interconnectedness of the region's youth. They drew inspiration from each other's successes and setbacks, learning valuable lessons in resilience and strategy. The digital age had enabled them to build transnational networks of support, amplifying their voices and expanding their reach. The rise of these youth-led movements signaled a shift in the political dynamics of South Asia. They challenged the status quo, proving that change was not only possible but inevitable. For the youth, this was about reclaiming their agency and shaping the future they wanted to see, not just for their countries, but for the entire region. The Gen Z revolution in Nepal was a powerful reminder of the importance of online freedoms in the modern age. For young people, the internet is not just a tool for communication, it is a platform for expression, a space for activism, and a vehicle for change. The social media ban was a stark illustration of how easily these freedoms can be threatened, but it also highlighted the resilience and ingenuity of a generation unwilling to be silenced. The movement's success was a testament to the power of collective action and digital democracy. It demonstrated that when united, the youth could effect real change, challenging even the most entrenched political structures. The revolution had reshaped the political landscape of Nepal, offering a chance for genuine reform and a brighter future. For Nepal's youth, the protests were not just about immediate grievances. They were a fight for their future and the future of their country. The events of 2025 have set a precedent for how technology can be harnessed for political engagement, offering valuable lessons for other countries grappling with similar challenges. As the world watched, Nepal's youth showed that they were not just the leaders of tomorrow but the changemakers of today. Their actions have inspired a new generation of activists, proving that even in the face of adversity, hope and determination can triumph. The Gen Z revolution was not just a moment in time, it was a movement that will continue to shape the future of Nepal and beyond.